we just wanted to thank everyone for being here today, um, for the many lively discussions that we had with all of the panels that examines a range of farm worker related um, issues, health disparities, factors associated with health disparities, how we study them. And we had begun this conference in the morning with a call for more research. Senator Caballero, in her keynote, very, you know, assertively shared with us that research plays a crucial role in states' allocation of resources. And our conference panels in turn touched on a number of topics that are relevant to farm worker health, with implications for not just research, but policy development and resource allocation. Um, the topics that many of our presenters today touched on involved everything from the historical role of colonization in the field of anthropology um, uh, to its implication on research today, health and social inequities experienced by farm workers by race and education and type of work, mental health among farm workers, sexual harassment on the job. Some of the topics also touched on structural conditions like the unequal relationships between growers and workers, the need for enhanced policies to improve working conditions, better regulatory oversight. And many of us heard the call for interventions that involve partnerships and collaborations with community-based organizations that work with farm workers. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Assemblyman Robert Rivas, who I saw just joined us, who along with our keynote speaker today, Senator Ana Caballero, has been a champion for farm worker-related issues and is responsible for the UC Merced Farm Worker Health Study, as well as this conference. Assemblymember Rivas hails from a farm working family. He was previously elected to the San Benito County Board of Supervisors. And he was elected to the California State Assembly to represent District 30 in 2018. And in short time, he has come to play an important role in elected positions at the center of farm worker related issues. Last year, he was elected to the chair of the Assembly Agricultural Committee, as well as the vice chair of the influential Latino Legislative Caucus. So I'll hand it over to Assemblymember Robert Rivas.
Well, Edward, I really appreciate the introduction, and I just hopped on to the call, and you mentioned State Senator Ana Caballero, who's a great friend of mine. I worked for her for when she first got into the Assembly in 2006, and so it's such an honor to have the opportunity to work with her. She's always such a professional, and certainly works hard for the state of California, and we're very lucky to have her in the state Senate. But I really appreciate the invitation to join everyone this afternoon. I think we all wish that we were able to gather in person, because the work and the information that you reviewed these last 2 days, I believe, is very important. But as you mentioned, my name is Robert Rivas. For those of you who don't know me, I was elected in 2018, re-elected last year in 2020 to represent the 30th district in the California State Assembly. And, it's a district and a region where I have lived in my entire life. It's a region that includes some of the most productive agricultural land in the country. It includes the county of Monterey, the Salinas and the Pajaro valleys, where 2/3 of the nation's leafy greens are grown and harvested. And so, again, I appreciate the invitation. It really is an honor, both on a professional level and a personal one, to be closing out this conference. And I know you guys, I'll be as brief as I possibly can, because I know you guys probably want to move on into the weekend. But as chair of the Assembly Agriculture, the committee, as vice chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus, I'm very thankful for the work that you all do in protecting the health and the well-being of our farm workers, and particularly now, as this pandemic, this virus in COVID-19, how it has impacted and it has devastated farm worker populations throughout the state of California. And last year, anticipating the threat and the potential consequences that this virus, that COVID-19 could have on our farm workers, I moved very, very quickly to build a strategy and to take action. to take action that would best mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 and, especially on our farm workers. And so what we did is we mobilized, did all the strategy, we focused on specific areas, economic support and stimulus, labor protections, workplace health and safety standards, and housing relief. And so I worked with many of my colleagues, and I introduced and subsequently worked to pass a statewide farm worker COVID-19 relief package, and then worked very hard with some of my colleagues, worked with my colleagues in the Latino our caucus to aggressively advocate. We time after time, we aggressively advocated our governor, his staff, this administration, in each one of these areas that I highlighted. But we advocated for targeted action and support for farm workers. And this included, from some COVID testing, making these tests available and make sure that there was access for farm workers to get tested. We advocated for track and trace programs, for workplace health and safety protections, ensuring that the state was working hard to ensure that farm workers had PPE on sites and made sure it was available. We worked hard to secure some temporary housing to alleviate critical overcrowded housing, especially in the region I represent, where the counties of San Benito and Monterey lead the state, where 1 in 10 households in these two counties is critically overcrowded and includes an agricultural worker. And since December, we have been working very, very hard to ensure that farm workers are equitably included in receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. And so clearly, right now, and for the past 13 months, there has been a lot of focus on farm worker health and the negative health impacts due to COVID-19. But having come from an immigrant farm working family, I was raised by my grandparents, my mom, who was a single parent. I've always been aware of the dangers associated with agricultural work. Having grown up, I lived in a tract of migrant farm worker housing, and it was attractive housing that was located in the same vineyards where my grandfather and his coworkers worked in every single day. And I remember the backbreaking work they did because I was there to see it when I was outside riding my bike. And I can remember during the harvest season, my grandfather, he would leave before anyone in our house would wake up. And then he would come home when my mother was putting my brother and I down for bed. I can remember the days when my brother and I weren't allowed to go outside because my grandmother and great grandmother would lock up the doors. They would put sheets and some blankets over the windows, because on those days, my grandfather would be on a tractor applying pesticides right outside of our housing unit and on the grapes. And so aside from my experiences on a personal level, prior to 2020 and this pandemic, the CDC ranked agriculture among the most hazardous industries in the country, an industry where farmers are at very high risk for fatal and non-fatal injuries. And as has been studied and confirmed, regarding the health outcomes in farm worker populations, long term, we know that farm workers live with higher risk of health threats like cancers and birth defects, some neurological disorders and respiratory problems. Farm workers like my grandfather used to often they delay healthcare and or treatment, leading to serious medical problems. And look, farm workers live on the edge of poverty, and it's a largely undocumented workforce. Fewer than half have health insurance or receive sufficient paid sick leave. And as I've known my entire life, what's been shown and demonstrated for the last 13 months for not only our state, but the country and for the world to see, is that farm workers are the absolute backbone of our agricultural industry. And they are currently and have always been directly responsible for our food security. They keep us and our families fed. And so as the most productive agricultural state in the country, California agriculture cannot thrive unless our farm workers are healthy and able to live in humane conditions. And so it should be a concern to all of us that amid this pandemic, farm workers have contracted COVID-19 at rates far greater than the general population, clearly putting their lives and our food supply in jeopardy. And so this is why I'm so appreciative of all the work you do as researchers and academics, all the work you do for the betterment of our farm workers. And I hope that amid this conference that you are all able to use this time well and learn something new and gain inspiration, because here in Sacramento, I'm actually in my district, but when we're in Sacramento, we have much more work to do to ensure that our farm workers are protected and that they have the opportunities, that their families have the opportunities to live at a very high standard. Because and clearly as policymakers, we need your data, your advice, your expertise to help us craft meaningful legislation, to help us advocate to the governor and to regulatory agencies, and certainly help us again to fulfill that mission and doing all we can to support our most vulnerable populations in the state, especially our farm workers. And so with that, I really want to thank you again for the invitation. I want to thank your dedication to the health and well-being of our farm workers. And please never hesitate to contact our office, and really look forward to engaging and working together as we move forward. Thanks, Edward.
Thank you, Assemblymember Rivas. So I'd like to just take a quick moment to say a few words in closing. We want to thank our presenters, our moderators, our attendees, and our speakers for being with us here today. As we move forward with continuing to conduct research on farm worker related issues, the speeches today and the research papers have provided us with a renewed enthusiasm around farm worker related research, as well as a wealth of data, analysis, and insight meant to advance our work in meaningful and purposeful ways. So this conference is going to be made available on our YouTube channel for the next 2 months. And we will be following up with all conference panelists and attendees with this link so that you can see any talks that you may have missed or reference information that was shared. We would like to again thank the conference organizing committee and our partnering institutions, the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation, UC Berkeley, UCANR. Thanks to our speakers, Chancellor Juan Sanchez Munoz, State Senator Ana Caballero, and State Senator Robert Rivas. Have a great day, and we hope to continue being in conversation about research on California's most essential workforce. Thank you, everyone.